kindness. He admired competence, ruthless clarity, cold brilliance. He believed only the strategic mind can control chaos. Genius alone is not power. Cold genius is, because warmth makes you predictable. Coldness makes you feared. If you want to rule your life, not just survive it, you must evolve. This world is not a playground. It's a chessboard. And those who play emotionally lose emotionally. So sharpen your mind, seal your emotions, and become what they never see coming. A cold genius. A cold genius doesn't waste time blaming the world. He doesn't cry over fairness or beg for mercy. He accepts one brutal truth: no one is coming to save him. The victim mindset is a disease. It whispers lies. It convinces you that your circumstances are unique, that your suffering justifies your inaction. But a cold genius sees through this illusion. He doesn't hope things get better. He adjusts. Pain, betrayal, loss. While the average man becomes reactive and spirals, the cold genius remains still. He studies, he dissects, he learns. And from the ashes of every failure, he constructs an empire of insight. Victims romanticize their story. Geniuses rewrite the ending. You must stop identifying with your suffering. No one respects weakness dressed in poetic excuses. You were abandoned, used, overlooked? Good. That's the fuel. A cold genius doesn't see failure as shameful. He sees it as data. Every mistake, every heartbreak is filed, dissected, and understood. Why did they betray you? What did you miss? How can this never happen again? This mindset turns humiliation into intelligence, and intelligence into strategy. People who live emotionally never evolve. They seek comfort instead of control, and comfort is the coffin of transformation. You want power? Understand this: the world doesn't owe you healing. It offers you leverage, but only if you're cold enough to take it. That's why the cold genius never plays the fool's game. He doesn't seek understanding. He doesn't argue with people beneath him. He doesn't waste breath demanding fairness from a rigged system. He becomes the exception. He works in silence. He upgrades his armor. And when he returns, the people who once dismissed him don't even recognize what he's become, because transformation doesn't need an announcement. While others post their pain, you weaponize yours. You build layers, mental insulation. You train your thoughts to seek angles, not sympathy. In every room, you assess. Who's in control? What does each person fear? Where is the hidden power? That awareness, cold and detached, is the signature of the cold genius. It's not about being loud. It's about being undeniable. Here's the hard truth Machiavelli would tell you. Most people won't respect you if you present yourself as a victim. They might pretend to care, but deep down, they smell weakness. They forget you. They don't fear you. But the moment you stop begging for fairness, the moment you stop reacting emotionally, the moment you stop being readable, you become dangerous. And in a world full of predators, manipulators, and liars, danger is survival. So kill the victim inside you, mourn his weakness, then bury him. Because the world does not respect what bleeds, it only respects what learns. From now on, every loss is research. Every betrayal is a data point. Every failure is a system upgrade. You're not broken. You're calculating. And soon, you won't just play the game. You'll control it. That's how a cold genius begins his rise. Not with tears, not with pity, but with total mental transformation. The cold genius understands something most people never will. Emotions lie. Results don't. You can feel loyal to someone who would betray you. You can feel hope in a plan that's already dead. You can feel guilt for escaping a trap that was designed to keep you small. That's the danger of emotion. It doesn't care about outcomes. It cares about identity, comfort, attachment. But real power has no use for comfort. It demands clarity. Machiavelli warned that those who cling to morality at the wrong time will be devoured by those who don't. This applies even more to sentiment. Sentiment is a soft illusion. It seduces you into hesitating when you should be executing. So train yourself to ask, is this decision about results or relief? If it's relief, stop. Relief is emotional. And emotions are the enemy of strategy. Don't misunderstand. This isn't about being heartless. It's about putting the mission before your moods. Feel everything. Act on nothing unless it serves your future. That's the difference between a cold genius and a sensitive intellect. The sensitive person drowns in self-doubt. They know what to do, but they need everyone to be okay with it first. The cold genius doesn't ask for emotional permission. He makes the hard call. He cuts off the friend who's become dead weight. He leaves the lover who distracts him from his mission. He walks away from the job that kills his fire in exchange for a fireproof paycheck. Sentiment is loyalty to the past, but the past has no place in the plan of a cold genius. If you want to move forward, something has to stay behind. Maybe it's a person. Maybe it's a belief. Maybe it's the weaker version of yourself. Whatever it is, it won't leave quietly. It will guilt-trip you. It will cry, scream, show you memories and promises. But if you want clarity, you must cut through it. You don't negotiate with sentiment. You erase it. Machiavelli wrote, "It is much safer to be feared than loved, if one must choose." Why? Because fear respects logic. Love clings to fantasy. You must choose clarity over kindness, results over regret, decisions over delays. Look at any empire, any powerful force in history. They all made decisions that broke hearts, but hesitation would have broken them. This is the dark truth no one wants to admit. Sometimes the right decision feels wrong. It hurts, but it's the only way forward. You must be willing to hurt people you care about if they stand in the way of what must be done. You must be willing to let go of what you love if it's dragging you backward. You must sacrifice comfort for control. Because sentiment clouds judgment. It keeps you explaining yourself to people who aren't listening. It keeps you negotiating with those who've already decided to betray you. Sentiment is the leash, and cold genius cuts it. Once that leash is gone, you become unpredictable, unreachable, unstoppable. No one knows what you'll do, not even your own emotions. That's the power of detachment. When you stop needing emotional approval, you become dangerous, capable of acting with precision. Not out of rage, not out of revenge, but out of purpose. This doesn't mean you become robotic. It means you become precise. You know exactly when to strike, and when you do, you strike without flinching. The cold genius doesn't fear hurting feelings. He fears wasting time. He fears stagnation, softening in a world that devours softness. So the next time you hesitate because something feels wrong, ask yourself, is it truly wrong, or is it simply uncomfortable? Greatness never grows in comfort, and clarity never comes through tears. It comes through silence, through strategy, through the willingness to become the knife in the dark, silent, sharp, and cold. This is the discipline of the cold genius. You do what must be done, even if it makes others uncomfortable, even if it makes you uncomfortable, because you no longer answer to your feelings. You answer to your future. To become a cold genius, you must master the art of emotional distance, not just from people, but from your own feelings. Emotions are useful, but only when you control them. When they control you, you become a puppet. Predictable. Weak. Machiavelli knew this. He understood that power does not belong to the most emotional, but to the most calculated. A ruler who reacts from anger or desperation becomes a pawn in the hands of more disciplined minds. Emotional distance is not indifference. It's discipline. It's the ability to feel everything and act only when it matters. That's how you gain control. Because the moment people can read you, your tells, your fears, your emotional leaks, they begin to shape your behavior. You become easy to provoke, easy to manipulate, easy to predict. But when you speak less, when you reveal nothing, when you become emotionally invisible, you become a threat. The cold genius doesn't lash out. He withdraws. He listens while others scream. He observes while others perform. And when he speaks, it cuts like a blade, because his silence built anticipation. Your silence must be sharper than their noise. Emotional distance is the foundation of mental clarity. It allows you to separate what you feel from what must be done. You may feel anger, but you choose patience. You may feel desire, but you choose timing. You may feel betrayal, but you choose strategy. That restraint makes you unbreakable, because no one can control you if they can't trigger you. Machiavelli once said, "A wise ruler ought never to keep faith when doing so would be against his interest." To act in your own interest, you must first escape the grip of emotional loyalty. That means detaching even from your own identity, the part of you that needs to be liked, understood, or validated. That part must die. Your power begins to grow the moment you no longer need emotional validation. You no longer explain your silence. You no longer justify your ambition. You no longer soften your edge just to make others feel safe. Instead, you use your emotional distance to gain information. Let others talk. Let them reveal. Every word they spill while you stay silent is a gift, an X-ray into their insecurities. Their ego will compel them to fill the silence. Let them. You take notes. You catalog weaknesses. You memorize their triggers. You prepare your moves with surgeon-like precision. This is how manipulation dies, because you see it coming. You don't react. You redirect. You don't warn. You don't threaten. You simply wait. And when you act, it's subtle, silent, clean. So clean, they won't even realize it was you. That's the power of emotional distance. It turns conflict into case study, enemies into test subjects, drama into data. You don't argue. You don't shout. You don't justify. Your restraint is louder than any outburst. And slowly, people begin to respect you, not because they understand you, but because they don't. They fear what they can't read. They fear what they can't control. That fear becomes your leverage. To become a cold genius, train yourself to observe without reacting. Let emotions pass through you like wind through steel. Stay unshaken. Stay unreadable. In your stillness, you become lethal. In your silence, you become the most dangerous mind in the room. Power isn't random. It follows patterns, formulas, just like mathematics. The cold genius treats life as a system to decode. He doesn't guess. He studies. He tests. He calculates. Machiavelli saw politics as a formula, human nature as a constant, strategy as the variable. The average person goes through life emotionally blind, reacting to behavior, words, appearances. But the cold genius looks deeper. He knows that behind every smile is a motive, behind every promise is a cost, behind every kind gesture is leverage. So he dissects people, not to judge, but to understand how they function in the game. Who has influence? Who craves approval? Who's addicted to validation? These aren't flaws. They're handles, leverage points. Just like a physicist understands gravity, the cold genius understands psychological gravity, the pull of fear, envy, lust, greed, and pride. He doesn't run from manipulation. He studies it. Because only when you understand the tools of influence can you defend yourself from them. This is why cold genius requires brutal self-awareness. You can't just study others, you must study yourself. What persuades you? What weakens you? Where are you still soft? Because if you don't master yourself, someone else will. The cold genius removes emotion from the learning process. He doesn't take failure personally. He collects it. He classifies it. He refines his methods. Like a scientist, he tests every reaction. What works? What backfires? What provokes silence, fear, or respect? This is why most people can't rise in power. They personalize everything. They think emotional intelligence means being soft. But in the hands of a cold genius, emotional intelligence becomes a weapon. It tells you when to flatter, when to disappear, when to deliver silence like a warning shot. You're no longer a victim of moods. You're a master of signals. Machiavelli believed fortune favors the prepared. The cold genius is always prepared. He studies history. He reads tyrants and tacticians. He studies the seducers and the liars. But he doesn't just read books. He reads behavior. He walks into a room and sees the invisible lines, the tension, the ego, the envy. Who pretends to be humble but craves dominance? Who fears pressure and will collapse under stress? You learn to spot who's playing chess and who's still playing checkers. Then you decide who to ignore, who to control, who to replace. Because cold genius is never reactive. He's positional. He places himself where he can observe before acting. He lets others reveal their hunger, their pride, their weakness. And when they've exposed themselves, he moves, quietly, strategically. No wasted energy. The lesson is simple. Treat power like a code, like a language, like a system. Study it, speak it, master it. And once you understand it, you'll stop chasing it. You'll become a source of power, a node of influence, a mind they fear because they can't understand how you're always 3 steps ahead. The answer is simple. You studied. They didn't. If you want to become a cold genius, stop blending in. Stop shrinking to make others comfortable. Stop being modest in a world that only respects presence. You must build a reputation that doesn't whisper intelligence. It commands silence the moment you enter the room. Mediocrity fears 2 things: clarity and precision. A cold genius radiates both. He doesn't need to brag about his mind. He lets his words cut like blades, calculated, sharp, and cold. He doesn't need to prove his worth. He forces others to question their own. This isn't about ego. It's about engineering a presence so exact that others hesitate before even thinking of challenging you. Machiavelli said, "It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles." Meaning, your power cannot come from a label. It must come from how you carry yourself, your discipline, your tone, your timing. Everything you do must send the same message. I do not compete with the average, I erase it. And this is where most intelligent people fail. They think intelligence is enough. It isn't. If your brilliance doesn't intimidate mediocrity, it's wasted. Mediocre people love soft minds. They want you humble. They want you self-deprecating. They want you nice. Why? Because it keeps you safe. For them. For the moment you remove your filters, the moment you start speaking with clarity and executing without permission, you become a mirror. A mirror that reflects their insecurities. And insecure people hate mirrors. They'll call you arrogant, too direct, too cold, too calculated. Let them speak. Because the moment you make mediocrity uncomfortable, you create distance. And that distance protects your time, your energy, your focus. Think like Machiavelli. Build a presence that commands respect even in your absence. That means people should fear wasting your time. They should hesitate before lying to you. They should tread carefully in conversations because your mind is not a playground. You are not here to make people feel better. You're here to rewrite the hierarchy. Reputation is not built by being everywhere. It's built by choosing visibility with precision. Say less, do more, but make the few words you speak unforgettable. Your silence should feel like a decision, your absence like a warning. This is why the cold genius isn't overly social. He chooses his moments. He appears when it matters. He speaks when it counts. And he leaves before they get too comfortable. Because comfort breeds familiarity, and familiarity breeds disrespect. Your coldness must feel sacred, rare, untouchable. So when you move, people remember. When you disappear, they feel the absence like tension. This is how you make mediocrity nervous, not by competing with it, but by overshadowing it. You become the standard, the example, the name they whisper, the presence that lingers long after you've left. This isn't about being feared in a childish way. It's about building a psychological advantage. When others hesitate around you, you win. When they double-check their words before speaking to you, you win. When they prepare twice as hard just because you're in the room, you've already won. Because the true power of the cold genius isn't how he moves, it's how others move around him. So how do you build this? Be disciplined when others are emotional. Be precise when others are vague. Be unavailable when others are desperate. Be brutally excellent when others are simply competent. And most importantly, never explain yourself. Power that explains itself loses its edge. Let them wonder. Let them assume. Let your mystery do the damage. Reputation is more powerful than presence, and when it's built correctly, it works for you, even in silence. That is the final form of the cold genius. Not just intelligence, not just control, but a presence so sharp it terrifies mediocrity without a single word. This world doesn't belong to the loud. It doesn't belong to the kind. It doesn't even belong to the talented. It belongs to the cold genius, the one who feels everything but shows nothing, who calculates his moves in silence while others waste time reacting, who uses pain as data, betrayal as fuel, rejection as sharpening stone. You stopped thinking like a victim. You silenced your emotions. You studied the patterns of power until they became second nature. You learned to make decisions with surgical clarity, free from guilt, loyalty, or comfort. And now you've built something most people will never understand. An identity that terrifies mediocrity simply by existing. You no longer seek validation. You don't explain. You don't flinch. You simply move, coldly, cleanly, with purpose. And when people try to predict you, they fail. Because you've evolved beyond emotion. You've become unreadable, untouchable, strategic, silent. That's the world of the cold genius. No chaos, no noise, just results. If something in you responded to this, if it struck a chord in the part of you that's tired of waiting, tired of explaining, tired of being soft in a world that rewards sharpness, then know this: you're not alone. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to become an edge, a weapon, a force that moves silently, strikes with precision, and leaves no room for weakness. You don't owe this world warmth. You owe it domination. You owe it your full potential, unleashed and unapologetic. And if you want to build something they can't ignore, start by becoming someone they can't read. Let go of sentiment. Let go of softness. Let go of the version of you that wanted to be liked. That version dies here.